Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about weed, smoking it, not smoking it, my story, what you might stand to gain from not smoking it, how I came to that realization, and what it's meant for me. Now, the thing is, it kind of speaks for itself. If you love it, you love it, and you might know why, you might not know why. You see, I first smoked weed when I was 12 and didn't really do much at the time. But then, on and off over the next few years throughout high school, it became part of my life. And, I had some really nice, enjoyable times on it. I was also not that studious when it came to school, but I was still very good at excelling and learning at things I was interested in, like your typical ADHD stereotype. There was a point though outside of high school, or towards the end of high school, where I started to feel like this isn't great for my brain. Like being high all day and just turning into a bit of a sloppy mess, being high. There was things I liked doing on it, like I liked training and exercising on weed, which is not something a lot of people like doing. Some people, perhaps. But anyway, this sense that like it's not quite right for my brain got drowned out by more weed, and I just kept going with it. And long and behold, years go by, and I basically stay on it for the most part of growing up and going into my early to mid 20s. And I wasn't always necessarily like a chronic stoner like wake and bacon, but it kind of did happen from time to time. And the people I was around, it was just a really normal, common thing. It was like coffee. I didn't really see much of a problem with it because it didn't seem like it was harming my body or my life. And when I'd smoke it, I'd just have this pleasing sense of thought. Like my mind became an interesting place. And I just felt peaceful doing nothing, which is actually part of the problem that I'm going to explain. You see, I would be satisfied with having thought an interesting thought or a valuable thought without even having written it down, and then the high would pass and I'd be tired and sleepy and grumpy, maybe smoke some more and see the day out and wake up and it's gone. It's all gone. Anything that was gained from that mental experience was gone. There was also like a lot of other factors going on. I'd been prescribed dexamphetamine for ADHD, and that can make you quite robotic. It made me quite robotic, especially from extended use. And cannabis seemed to bring back like some sense of interesting thought. It would make things more creative and interesting for me. It would also put me into this sort of whimsical state where, I'd get excited about it, like, smoking weed and going on some adventure somewhere. Like it would make everything a bit more childlike and whimsical. It was a form of escapism, really. A form of escapism because I didn't really want to be grounded in this world unless I was exercising. So, that was my reason for coming back to it. I'd go through phases where I didn't want to not be high. It was just more enjoyable than sober life. But, as I got older and got on, particularly in the last couple of years, I started to, for one, not really get high from it anymore. Like it wouldn't actually give me the same feeling like it would when I was younger. I would maybe just be very in my head, very isolated, very antisocial, And, you know, I could still socialize on it in some settings, but like, you know, the idea of talking to someone at the door or like, you know, real basic life things, it was like, what am I doing? Smoking this thing or taking this thing or eating it that makes me like sound like an idiot. Like I literally sound like an idiot. I can't talk to people. I couldn't make YouTube videos during these times. And my creative process was very limited and scattered. Like I was always like state chasing, like I needed to be in the right state to do something. And I wasn't really producing much of value in that time. You know, I had different jobs, I had different things I needed to go and do, but in terms of my own creative endeavors, there was nothing really happening that was consistent. So I started to not get as high from it, and it wouldn't really, you know, take me to that place I was looking for. And I started to just notice that like I was getting caught in cycles, in loops, where I wouldn't meet resistance. I would smoke weed instead of meeting resistance head on and engaging with life. It was like a cop out. You know, things got tricky, hard day, or whatever it was. Just smoke some weed and go for a walk in the bush, or whatever it is. Like it was just my little escapism. I started to realize it was my escapism, and that certain patterns just kept recurring in life. And instead of dealing with the root of what was causing that pattern, I would just smoke weed and reset. So it was keeping me stuck in a lot of ways, in a lot of patterns in life. And I started to notice that. Now, when I quit weed, it wasn't like this big, I'm never smoking that again. You know, it wasn't this highly charged emotional thing. It was like, oh, I just prefer to be clear and straight. Because at that point in my life, I'd started to prioritize my life development over just myself feeling good or feeling high. You know, it coincided with feeling more capable to engage with life, being more stabilized in myself, in who I am. But I didn't feel like I needed to change my state because my state was fine. It didn't really matter if I was like, you know, that happy or a little bit low. It was like, whatever, I'm a man, I'm capable of doing the work that needs to be done, whatever that is, and I can enjoy myself without being high. Like, you know, I used to not be able to watch a movie unless I was high because I think it wouldn't be interesting. And now, if the movie's not interesting, it's just not interesting. You know what I mean? Like, so what I started to realize about weed is it would take away the drive to do things. And that might sound obvious, but what I mean by that, if you have any creative drive or instinct whatsoever, it will naturally become uncomfortable to not use it, to not apply yourself to the creative force that's within you, to not let that come out. And that starts to generate friction where you're like, I need to start creating something because I feel like I'm wasting my time. And that sense that you're wasting precious time is actually a good thing. And that's what goes away when you smoke weed. You see, there are natural mechanisms in place to get us to create and to do things. And weed just makes all of that go away. It's like a painkiller for your soul. You know, you could be grinding away or rotting away in life, and weed will just numb that pain. It'll just take it away, so you won't even feel like that's the case. So what I found when I just naturally stopped smoking weed is that I felt the drive, I felt the itch to create. It became frustrating, uncomfortable, and that's energy. You know, I actually started to feel this energy, this fire rise within me, and I had to start getting it out. I had to start showing up more for YouTube. You know, you'll see, I've deleted a bunch of videos on my YouTube and like, you know, whatever, so you might not get the best idea of what my timeline has been like in terms of creating from looking at my previous videos. But it's been one of those things. Once I've taken that out of my life, my creative energy has been there to actually develop other areas of life. And that anger, that frustration that arises is actually quite a potent force for enacting change. Like that is your drive. I remember, being like at the times where I was getting high all the time and just thinking about those super driven people in life that seem like they can just do anything and achieve anything. And being like, how is that possible? Because I was crushing my own drive and my own will. And when I took that out, it's just there. It's just there naturally. It's like, okay, it's like if you're a guy who lifts a lot, like frequently, and like lifting is a part of your life or a sport, it's not a discipline to be able to do that. It might take discipline in the beginning to get yourself going, but it's harder to not do that because it becomes part of your ritual, part of your feel-good life cycle where you get energy and power from that. And that's like what happened when I just let go of the weed. I just had more energy and power to be able to do things. I also stopped tolerating. I had less tolerance for weak ideas and weak beliefs. I got straighter and clearer on what it actually is that I believe. Weed can kind of make you like whimsical in the sense that, oh, maybe this is true, maybe that is true. Oh, isn't that an interesting idea? Like you just get obsessed and lost in this world of ideas rather than like what is actually meaningful and purposeful and true. So I became like just more of a real person. Like I became a real man when I stopped smoking weed all the time. Now, I don't think it's really helpful to get all caught up in like guilt and shame around it. I think it's just one of those things you realize it doesn't serve you after a while. And why serve your own feelings? Why is that the most important thing to do? Because the thing is, when you pursue something higher in life, you get pleasure anyway. Like, it's basically like, what do you get in your satisfaction out of in life? And if you're seeking pleasure, pleasure ceases to exist. It's basically like that, anything like, and like, why would you need to be high to like clean your house or to do one of those, to do like normal basic things? It just doesn't make any sense. But this is the kinds of things I would think at the time. So, leaving it behind, it just makes you more of a real man. That's kind of it. It does have this like feminizing effect as well, where you become a bit more avoidant of conflict or drama, or, well, that's not such a bad thing, being avoiding drama, but like you become, maybe conflict avoidant, where that just makes you like a weaker person if you're like avoiding maybe saying something that's important or true. And it just messes up your whole system for like overcoming challenges in life. Like, I know there's plenty of people out there that can smoke weed and go about their life, but I still think the people that are smoking weed like every day, you're coasting. You're definitely coasting in life. And like if you're an older bloke, whatever, like who am I to say what another man should do? Especially if you're older in life and you've got your shit together. Older dudes seem to have their shit together in some way. Like they have more of a grit and a capacity. I think if you're a young guy smoking weed too much, you'll be, I think, leaving a lot on the table, and it's probably not good to compare yourself to other people who seemingly can smoke weed and do more, because chances are that's not you. It's actually a small percentage of the people that can smoke weed and hold their life together very well. And even if you can hold down a job, maybe, like, is that all you want out of life? Is that really it? Are you happy just coasting, with maybe some of your bills paid and like just consuming weed and games and all that shit? I think the fundamental thing that happens when you stop smoking weed, you stop wasting time, you stop consuming as much, and you start producing more. It turns you into more of a productive person. And I don't mean productive in like the Pomodoro time setting, like, oh, I got all my little jobbies done today. But I mean productive as in like you're actually creating something out of your life. And as a man, if you're not creating something, if you're not giving something to the world, to life, if you're not making hay while the sun shines, there's a part of you that feels like you're rotting away. And you might not feel that if you're on weed, but everyone else can see it, and it just kind of stinks. That's why stoners end up hanging around with other stoners, and they keep themselves in their own little world because it's all a bypass. Now, like, I'm sure there is some uses for it. It's not like it's, I'm not saying it's all the devil, but I just don't think that chronic weed use is doing us any good. I think it's really time to just deal with the world as it is in front of us. There's enough stuff coming our way that we just need to, engage directly with life and be sober and see it how it is, and then deal with it accordingly and not be in la la land. It's just not the time for la la land. That time's long past. And, hard times are already here. But that's all right, we can do it. We can pull through this. It's time to be a warrior. It's time to get strong. It's time to get vital, Like, getting vital is the best thing that you can do right now. And being vital means that you